which is something we always want to do, right? Like that's like what you go in college and people sell you on the dream. You're like, one day I'll help. And then you get out there, you're like, I can't do anything.
I will finish this reconciliation.
Exactly.
And just to be clear, I'm a very pro free market capitalist. It drives innovation. That's why America's great. Like I completely agree with that. I also agree that some things should be centralized and done by the government. There's a place for both of them. And audit's one where I look at it's like, is innovation gonna really save this? Is there that much to go? And I could be wrong, but then I also look at like, okay, you have 4 options. It's a commodity. That means there are 4 management functions worth of expense across the same talent pool that actually does the work, right? So back to synergies and GE and all that kind of stuff. You know, if you really thought about it more like the PCAOB doing an audit roll-up play, driving efficiency across that. And then the way I would propose it gets funded is if you're a public company, you pay in, and then it's like, and that's how that entity is funded. I don't think it should be a taxpayer funded thing. When it's taxpayer funded, that's like rightfully so. People should get fired up about where their dollars are going and how much it's being wasted. But if you're going to be a public company, rather than negotiate audit fees and have different fees with everybody, just like X% of your revenue goes into the pool. No further questions. That's it. And then we're going to audit you. And they send the team out to audit them. Like, why have the PCAOB that's going to audit the auditors? It just feels like if they're going to do a sample of the auditors and kind of do audits and tell everyone how to do it, like just do it yourself if you're so good at it.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it though is you need.
And to be clear, I don't feel super strongly about this. It's just like
it's an interesting take.
To me, it's like the only alternative to what we have going on right now.
Well, yeah, and it's like other people throwing out ideas like, hey, if you get blockchain functioning enough from a technology point of view, do you really need to even have an audit? Because you can literally watch the trail of every transaction, and you can put in rules into your systems that say, pull this information, do it this way, transaction can be structured this way. And so it's like, well, some utopia perhaps you wouldn't need to, because the way the technology is set up, it just prevents anything from happening, right? But I just go back to business is so dynamic, and the way we do things, it's like, could you keep up with your programming to allow for the new transactions, the new structure, the new deals that people want to have?
A lot.
And the issue is oftentimes you have to try something and let it fail to learn that it was a bad idea.
That's a good point.
Right? Like, it's like, this isn't like putting your hand on a hot stove to like learn that it's a bad thing, right? It's like, what would be a good example? It's like slowly staying up. Like, it's like getting an hour less of sleep every night for a month to figure out that, that makes me feel miserable. It's not so instantaneous sometimes in the public space.
So you're talking about busy season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just an hour, just an hour less. Yeah, I was happy to see sleep
an hour per day.
An hour per day.
I'm saying that's ultimately
that's
when you get to crunch time and the review notes list is this long, then you're not sleeping at all.
You're just going, please sir, can I have some more sleep? Anything. Yeah, I've definitely slept at clients. That's no joke.
That's yeah.
But I think the other thing that we're kind of seeing with the SEC is they are, and I don't think this is a big, again, going back to like the compliance that they want to see with auditors, it's companies don't have to worry about that today. But what you have to think as a corporation is if they're going to beat up your auditors more, eventually that pushes into fees. That pushes into work that the audit scope has to do, because they have to prevent themselves from getting fined by the SEC again or looking bad in the public place. So you got to look back and say, okay, well, eventually this is going to hit my audit in cost and time, and that's going to hit my team. And so what do you do as a CFO to prevent that? Well, you got to stay up on it. You got to work actively with your auditor to prevent that. But most likely you're going to have to make sure to get, to streamline things well in advance and like block and tackle. So to Eric's point that he said, he was like, you got to pave that road before they even show up.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
that is the way to like actually make it efficient, drive profitability for the audit firms. But the problem is the CFO is never going to want to pay more for the audit. If you try to charge them too much, they're going to take it out to bid. Someone else will give the piece. So there's always a race to the bottom. And then how do you pay accountants more if there's a talent? It's a tough pinch to be in right now. And And I don't know. I'm glad we help with accounting efficiency. That's
right. Well, and I think, it's a great place to be, because like everything's pointing at these pressures in the industry that says, well, something's got to give. Clearly, human capital is no longer the solution, right? That's been beat up for too long. Me personally, I don't think ERPs can be your solution either, right? Like ERPs do very well at what they do, but that is transaction management. and and reporting around that. And when you talk about your workforce and your workflow, like something's got to give, and the technology isn't going to be in your traditional ways, and people need to start thinking outside of that and saying, how do we interact with our technology? How do we manage our teams? How do we make that more efficient? Instead of just saying, well, I'll throw bodies at it until it's been enough, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I think the other thing to talk about with, we can kind of move on from compliance because I think we've beat that one pretty thoroughly. And just again, a plug to that, the SEC struggles just like the rest of you, and they're human as well.
There we go.
So they should buy FloQast.
All right.
And
we're here to help. Your implementation will be great.
It will be. We'll make you a good deal as long as it doesn't break any laws. And then for ESG, I think this one is a real interesting one. Huge changes in the ESG space this year, right? A lot of solidifying of regulations across the board, even though we haven't necessarily seen anything from the SEC this year.
I to be totally blunt, I haven't been following ESG developments very closely. Could you catch me up to speed a little bit?
Yeah, so we had a huge regulation. I think it's the SEDDA come out of Germany, which, and then California had its own regulation that came out that just said, hey, this is what we're going to do with ESG reporting, and they put their own kind of regulatory, hey, this is what we want from people that operate within our bounds, right? The interesting thing about it is if you think about, the size of California, it's like its own country, right? And you think about Germany.
Up there with Germany.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally in size. And think about Germany, it's like a lot of us actually operate in that space, whether we think about it or not. Now, if you're maybe a small, medium-sized business, maybe you're not really interacting with that too much, but pretty quickly, once you try to scale as an organization, you need to scale internationally. You're going to have operations in one of Europe's biggest markets, which is Germany. But what these regulations really look like is not just, hey, this very small group of people need to report on this. They're putting the onus or the pressure on the reporting entity that they are responsible for all their data, even if they're not the ones that create the data, right? So, for instance, I'm a German company that falls under their ESG reporting, right? And I have this fairly broad supply chain, global supply chain. It doesn't matter that I don't own a portion of my supply chain that is a vendor or it is several vendors away from me. If it is something that I need to report on, I need to be able to certify and validate that information, and they're going to be held accountable for that. So what does that mean for the supply chain? Well, it means that you actually have an edge if you have ESG reporting. So bear with me on this. They're going to be forced very readily that they have to be able to report numbers that they have no control over, right? So when they buy goods from companies, they're not just buying a good, they're actually buying ESG data along with it, right? Reportable data with it. Okay. And so if your company cannot provide that data within their supply chain and you sell to that supply chain, you're no longer selling to that supply chain because they're going to be forced to find a vendor that can provide them that information. So the way I look at this is actually a hell of an opportunity for accounting and finance, but particularly accounting, to take hold of ESG reporting within their organization, centralize it, figure out how to compile it, figure out how to report it, turn it into its, like literally stand it up as if it is financial reporting, and present that in a way that your sales force can actually sell that to the customer along with the goods, because now you've actually created value and strategic advantage for your organization in these marketplaces. And that's not just Germany, that is also California, right? So that's the kind of interesting thing with the solidification of the market, is that it's been pretty significant and pretty wide nets are being cast, because they're saying, hey, you don't get a pass because you can't collect the information. You still have to collect it. And eventually they're going to require you to certify it and have that audited, right? Like that's just a natural byproduct of these regulations.
I'm just thinking of how dark some of these supply chains get.
Oh yeah.
How is that going to work?
I mean,
there's a sad reality of our world where some of these supply chains start, and
I think it's going to be like a comfort letter, right? So when you go public and you have your S1, and the auditor will come in and do a comfort letter on your S1, and they say, these ones, A+, feel real great about these numbers. We can tie these back to financial statements. This one, not so much. It just kind of, the grading goes down and so it's when it goes into it. That's what I think.
Okay, so if I'm an electric car maker, I need batteries. I need
Metal.
minerals that come from mines where there's not the best labor practices. Like, what are the reporting requirements around that? Is that
Well, I think a lot of it's focused more on the climate side, right? So it's going to be, carbon emission. I think there, to an extent, people might be able to do or perform studies that give estimates that are reasonable enough, that, material enough that people can move forward with it. But again, that if you go back in a supply chain, like it goes pretty far, pretty deep. How do you make sure that they've sourced their
and it's pretty
metal?
informal. I've watched far too many documentaries about this to where I'm just like, how is this all going to play out? This feels to me like it's going to be rife with fraud as well.
Yeah.
I'll just throw that out there.
And I think that's where the certification and the audit in the future is going to come from. So if your company gets in front of that to the best of their ability, you have a much more, you have a stronger competitive advantage to your buyer. And you could potentially, one, you might be the only person they can buy from, in which case, to an extent, you could set your price, right?
Yeah.
Or two, you can at least ask for a premium because they're like, well, listen, the regulation isn't in play yet. And it's like, yeah, but if you deal with us now, you have historical information starting today, and you might be able to get a little bit of a premium on your price that you sell to customers. So to me, it just goes back to, this is one of the rare opportunities that accounting and finance can truly drive value within the organization. Generally, we unlock value. We don't drive value. Big difference,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
We're not creating. We're just saying, well, you kind of bound it up here. We'll help you unlock it. In this way, we're really creating and driving that value within the organization, which is something we always want to do, right? Like that's like what you go in college and people sell you on that dream. You're like, one day I'll help. And then you get out there, you're like, I can't do anything.
I will finish this reconciliation.
Exactly.
So this it all culminates in like an ESG score.
No,
What's
I mean,
the end game
it's
of it?
disclosure, right? But I think when it gets to actually the hard reporting on it, to your point with these complex supply chains, they're going to have to grade it. There's going to have to be some area of the disclosure where they give it a grading on, how well it can be trusted and everything. And then there's going to, at some point in time, there's going to have to be some bright line or some hard line that just says, hey, you have to at least have this threshold, or like you need to at least be able to go this far back. Because, again, like even if you think about a couple years, that's a pretty short amount of time to affect these supply chains quickly.
Totally. That's what I mean, you're running a company and you got like 4 layers deep of supply chain and they all have sub vendors that they use. And it's like, this gets incredibly complicated really quickly and is going to, major impact on business.
Yeah. And think about just the data. And this is where I go back. So Mike and I talked before this, occasionally I corner him and he is forced to talk to me. But
I'm curious,
dark rooms.
Where's this going?
It goes back to, we were talking earlier about my hot take here on ESG and ESG reporting. And I don't think this is a 2024 thing. But if ERPs don't very aggressively take the seriousness of ESG reporting like into their programs, they're going to get pushed to the side within the organization. Your ERP, that's meant to be your center hub of transaction and data management from a financial point of view. Well, now that we need ESG information and really like impact information is maybe how I would describe that, you're going to see your ERP move to the side and an ESG platform come up right next to it to couple together with it of just as important significance and within the organization, and perhaps actually the final mile piece of data for the company to report on. They're going to take it from the ERP to the ESG to report on it because, a lot of ERPs currently, the way they're built, aren't nimble enough to maybe go that other direction, where an ESG that's being built from the ground up, the companies that are coming out with that information or that setup can build that agility within their program, and they can be ready to be the kind of the final mile piece. So
I think you're spot on. ERPs aren't coming out with it. Should we build it?
We should build it.
I think we should do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Chris, are you listening? Chief Product Officer?
Yeah, get on it, Chris.
There you go.
Yeah. You don't need weekends, Chris. You'll be fine.
Totally. Pretend it's busy season again.
Yeah. Chris is going to find me tomorrow at the desk and just be like, what did you say yesterday?
Chris, this ESG thing is really hard. It's like harder than I realized. I think maybe we should productize that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's a real big development there. And I think what you're going to see is now that we have examples of regulation from pretty sophisticated places, California, Germany, other people are going to solidify theirs.
Where do you think, like, compared to SOX?
Difficulty-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, I think SOX is much more difficult because it already like SOX has the built-in audit aspect
And it like
to it.
changes operations.
Yeah.
This is okay.
This is impactful in this, or are you saying like how does ESG going to impact the company?
Yeah, like what's
yeah.
what's going to drive?
I think it'll be bigger than SOX is.
Wow.
Like at the end of the day, I think it'll be bigger than SOX is because
that's
SOX,
a big. I feel like SOX is the biggest thing to happen to accounting since.
But think about where SOX fits into ESG
Excel?
too. Well, ESG in a lot of ways is meant to be. It's almost another acronym for like GRC, right? I think GRC people say ESG falls underneath that, but if you look at them, it's like essentially another group of people came out for another word other than GRC, and they said
because
ESG.
GRC is risk and compliance, not reporting, and this is a reporting function.
But it is taking a lot of your entire risk portfolio and how you impact the environments around you. And I'm not talking just like nature environment. I'm talking about business environment, community environment, like all that kind of stuff. And it wants you to report on that, and it wants to really see, in my opinion, what you're seeing from investors is they want to know how companies are actually keeping good on their promises. Because investors will talk about what they do in communities, they'll talk about what they're doing in supply chains, but we only see financial or what we would call economic impact from that. But it's a very limited view on what's actually happening. There's a lot of other KPIs to look at. And ESG is saying, we want to see those KPIs. Your financial reporting isn't enough for me to really understand what's going on here. And I can't really, and so people are discussing it in their MDA, and they're talking about it in their board meetings and their investor calls, but they want hard numbers to prove that out, and they're going to want it audited. They're going to want it verified and validated. And so I think it's going to be significantly more impactful in the long run because we were just financial and they are everything else.
Wow, and that's a hot take. I think probably okay.
Yeah.
I could believe that.
Yeah, Vegas bet. Put it on there. Put it down. When we're there in February,
2025. It's a more expensive audit than SOX.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the other crazy thing. Like maybe that's the race to the bottom that they try and hop on. The big public firms is like, oh, well, now we can audit a whole nother gambit of information.
Yeah,
that's an excellent point.
With the less people that we have.
Yeah, exactly. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They got time.
Exactly.
They have that hour we gave them to sleep.
It's a vicious cycle.
It really is.
It's a vicious cycle.
It really is. Mm-hmm. But I think you're going to see other states come up with their ESG programs. You're going to see other countries come up with their ESG programs. And now that they have an example, they have something tangible to work with. It's always easy to mimic or to replicate than it is to be the trendsetter.
Well, California and Germany doing anything is like a real driving function for the rest of the world. It's amazing how much California does something and the United States has to comply with it effectively.
Privacy, all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, I think that's a great example is how much work companies had to do with privacy because it's like, well, we're not a California company. Well, you sell there. So, they open up your website.
If you want to do business here, totally. Yeah, it's spot on. And that's why we got Eric, thank God.
Yeah, that's that poor guy.
Eric Graham-Smith, EGS, not ESG, but EGS, yes.
Might have to have him change his name. Smith goes first now.
Yeah, I don't think he's
I don't know how your spouse is going to take that, Eric, but you can have that conversation. So I think, and then the last thing I'd say about ESG, and my prediction here is that we finally hit an influx point or a critical mass with ESG, with these regulations that have come about, that it is just going to keep its momentum, despite political pushback. Which this will waffle, this will waver until it really settles. All things always do. The pendulum swings both ways.
Yeah.
But there's enough momentum now where it will continue to swing until it gets to a kind of mature or sophisticated point where it's like, yep, we're like SOX. Like SOX is there.
Saw that exact thing. It swung from way too over the top, way too loose, we feel like we've settled in. We've settled for the most part,
and they'll come out with new things. They'll get investor feedback. They'll get market feedback that, oh hey, this is the next thing we're really changing. But at the end of the day, it's like, they did 606. That was huge. Surprisingly, leases was actually pretty substantial for people as well. But it's not like this is coming from nowhere anymore, right? Like you already had guidance to work with, and we also know they'll give you a really long runway to get it done. Yeah, that's what I love. Is they're like this date, and you're like, really? And they're like this date, and you're like, come on, man. They're like, okay, this day, but
Yeah,
you
dude.
got to be here.
The safest prediction for anything is they're going to push it out another year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like they said they're going to have their big ESG disclosure. They thought would be like early Q2 of this year. It's now November. Almost December. Still nowhere to be seen.
My favorite example of all this is that when I started audit in 2006, we were 1, maybe 2 years away from being on IFRS, and we had to get ready for that.
Oh, I forgot about IFRS. That I remember that in college where there was like, you guys, you got to be ready for this. It's happening. It's happening. And then I got into public accounting and it still hadn't happened. Crazy.
Yeah, it was like my first week of training. They were like, so we're going to learn all this stuff, but like, it might not matter because IFRS is coming and you got to be ready for it. And yeah,
like
2023, here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, we had a huge convergence. We didn't.
Yeah, we did not.
So it's kind of wild. So that's so that kind of covers us on the ESG space. So the last kind of area we want to talk about is let's get into tech. This should be our bread and butter.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of areas we can take tech. So I'm just going to keep it pretty specific. We want to keep it to the profession. What do we think is going to happen to technology in general within the accounting finance space? Obviously that suggests fintech, but I think there's other technologies that kind of impact us.
Yeah.
Like generative AI is a great example. But what do you think is really going to happen within kind of the fintech space in the next year?
I think continued investment in AI. I'll just go for it. So I think it's going to be used in like really bespoke ways within products to help drive efficiency. I don't view it as a complete replacement for accountants, so I'm kind of holding firm on that prediction
100%.
For next year. I mean, I think bigger opportunities down the road, but what I also find interesting is, a lot of these model AI providers, open AIs of the world, so on and so forth, they're putting out really great tools that make it easier to build on this stuff. So, so I think it's really interesting. Like, how long do you wait before building your own thing? Because is OpenAI just going to put that tool out and make it a lot easier for you to build? Like, you see this data analysis thing come out, very cool. A lot of applications in accounting. So happy we put zero resources into trying to build that because now you can just license it. It's expensive, stuff like that. So that's where like they're going to make it a lot of money because those tokens are not cheap and they can charge for it. So I think generative AI is going to kind of start, and a lot of people are going to leverage those other models in a pretty intelligent way to do it, not necessarily build all their own stuff. And then the other one is, I think within the office of the CFO, there still is a really good appetite within the VC community to fund companies that are doing well. So I think that's one of the areas where we'll see investors still go for it because the realization that the market's having is, I was talking to somebody recently and I was like, it's really interesting. Like, I've never been happier to not sell to a salesperson before. And, like back in 2020, 2021, you look around and like, we're growing really fast. It's like, we doubled in 2021. That's like an insane feat to have. But then you start comparing yourself to some of the sales tools and it's like, they tripled, they quadrupled. I talked to our CRO, Ken, and it's like, Ken can boil the purchasing decision down to, if we close one more deal, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so we buy it because it's only one more deal to do it. And it's like, you say that over and over again. So these companies just blow up and grow so fast. The comment that this banker made is like, so we really love the CFO now because while you don't have as much upside in a bull market, you have way less downside in a bear market.
Yes.
They're like, so you guys are still growing way better than most companies. And in fact, a lot of people selling sales tools are like flat year over year.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if I did an all hands meeting and it was like, we grew 0% year over year.
Our churn, like our new customers barely like manage to block our churn.
That's where a lot of companies are at right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of sales tools. So I think with that, VCs, like the areas they're opening up their wallets are within the back office, oddly enough, within those types of solutions. So I think we'll continue to do well from a fundraising perspective, which means more applications are going to pop up.
Yep.
I think what's becoming popular is focusing on a vertical and really figuring out the pain around that. So I think you're going to find a lot of niche businesses get started next year that are going to be able to do it really cheaply, leverage great tools to be able to build something that's really great. And some good companies are going to come out of next year. I don't know how much.
Like Gen AI that's specific for like fintech Gen AI that's specific for like a healthcare vertical. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that. I think it's like there's a lot of you're able to build companies really quickly, and not everyone thinks like the way we do. It's not always like, how do we sell to everyone? How do we become massive and all this kind of stuff? But if you can find a niche and figure out a way to sell it really quickly,
Yeah.
You can raise money and build a really nice business in that space, and then a strategic acquirer will buy you.
Yeah.
Will buy you later. So I think
And
there's gonna be
everybody's
some
happy.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everyone's happy. You don't necessarily have like the psychopathic CEO who wants to. That's not everyone's that way. So
Yeah.
I think there will be funding available.
Mike's talking about himself.
Yeah,
For
I
those
am.
that are listening.
I am, yes. So yeah, so anyway, I think funding is going to be available, which will be nice. And then when the IPO window opens up again, people need to hire more accountants. Technology, the accountants aren't going to be there. Technology is going to be purchased even more than before. So it's going to be a great market all around for people selling to the office of CFO.
Well, and I think, yeah, I would agree with all that. I think when I look at, and I wouldn't even go even specifically to Gen AI, but to your point of, the office of the CFO, when you're dealing with accountants, when you're dealing with finance professionals, they like to be consistent, right? They're very reluctant to switch. We see that in our own sales cycle, right? Where it's like, well, what's this gonna mean for us? Because they like historical, they like to use what they have. Luckily, we don't really work in a data space from a reporting sense. So it's not quite the same conversation. But to your point is, once you're in, you're in, and the churn can generally be a lot more well managed than it is maybe in these sales spaces where it's like, well, hey, one more sale did make it worth it, but we have one less sale, so something's got to give. You're gonna have to cut one of these.
Well, it's not just churn. The bigger killer is actually downsell.
Mm-hmm.
So people
I see what you're
hired a
saying.
lot of salespeople.
Yep.
And then they fired a lot of salespeople.
Yep.
So
Don't need the licenses.
All the licenses go. Not all the licenses, but 50% of the licenses go away. Accounts did not get fired in mass.
Yeah, you
because
couldn't.
There aren't enough of them. So that's where we don't see that contraction that you're seeing with people who sell to like revenue functions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, when it's a spigot that can get turned on and off really easily, your licenses go up and down. Really
because
easily.
like we're not going to flippantly change solutions wholesale. It's hard to get all that stuff integrated and working well. And if you're happy with it, I'm not going to churn it just because, but I'm not going to pay as much if I have half the number of salespeople, for sure. And then and then they're going to make they're going to like make compromises. They want to keep us as a customer, and then we'll grow again in the future. But for now, that's the tough spot that a lot of these companies are in. Yeah,
that's super interesting. And I, to your point, this is a question that I think hopefully you can answer. It's fairly specific to the fundraising space, but I felt like leading into 2023, a lot of wealthy accounts, we'll say, were essentially pledging money to different funds, like investment funds that the different PEs and VCs grew. To me, it seemed like they grew pretty significantly from 2021 to 2023, beginning of 2023. So is there a lot of, when you're talking to these different investors, does it seem like they have a lot of money they want to invest and they have the ability to do that?
Yeah, the old, so known as dry powder in the
dry
space,
powder.
right?
Yep,
so that's where the funds have raised a bunch of money and haven't deployed that capital yet.
Yeah.
So that is a very real thing. But what a lot of people don't realize is VCs and PEs, private equity firms, it's a relationship game.
Yeah.
And the LPs are the people where you go and you raise money from them. So for those not aware of the space, an LP is a limited partner.
Yep.
If I'm starting up a venture capital firm, I need to go find a bunch of rich people or institutions to give me money so I can start my fund. Those are my LPs.
Yep.
So at the bigger level, those are generally like governments, pension plans, universities, family offices, occasionally banks, things like that. So just because they've committed money to you does not mean it's in the bank.
Nope.
They still have to wire it to you if you want to do an investment, right? So you do a capital call with them. So just because they've committed to you does not mean that you are going to ask them for that because you don't want to blow up your relationship.
Yeah. You don't want to compromise a fund in the future because you drain them dry.
Exactly. So that's the reality is it's not like VCs are like, I have all this dry powder, I have to deploy it, blah, blah, blah. And like these people can't do anything to stop me. No, it's like, now's not a good time to invest. I don't want to piss off my LPs. I'll return this capital. We'll wait for the market to turn around and then we'll raise another fund and go from there. So there's a lot of dry powder available, but there's still, investors are very stingy about dishing it out and making investments right now because they don't want to piss off the LPs. So a little dynamic behind the scenes. And it's just what that's done is it's resulted in this big spread of like people want to invest in the winners. What's the most sure thing that's going to provide a value for me? And if there's too much risk associated with it, they're just not doing it. Yeah, particularly at the later stages.
Yeah, their willingness to kind of like take on that volatility is a lot lower, right?
Yeah.
In the investment. So
which you can also read that as more sort of a buy high,
yeah,
sell low.
Yeah.
Which maybe isn't the best.
No.
I could argue maybe now is the best time to be making investments when the prices are low. But
yeah, well, I think that goes back to the early on we were saying, people wanted pre-2014 deals on their buys.
Yeah.
And they felt like they could get those because, like, all right, we can buy really low and we just need to hold it for a few years and things will turn around. It's like, but people had enough cash, so they're not willing to do it.
What's interesting is the deals that are getting done at 2014 levels.
Yeah.
That's like exactly where the market is right now. But yeah, you don't have as many people who feel a sense of urgency. And a lot of people a lot of founders, CFOs reacted quickly enough to put themselves in a cash flow positive position. And so they're fine. They can ride it out, wait for the market to come back and go public maybe 3 years later than they had originally wanted to.
It's kind of crazy how much variable spend there can be in some of these companies, especially on the tech side, that they're like, oh no, we could have been maybe profitable 2 years ago, but we were focused highly on growth because we didn't want to miss out on market upswing that we were investing the cash. But now that it's on the opposite swing, we can slow the spigot down. We can close the spigot off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
funny, you can figure it out when you're not in like growth at all cost mode.
Yeah.
But is it time to zig when everyone's zagging? Is the growth going to come back next year and maybe you should hire into it? I don't know. It's a tricky game to play.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to your generative AI point, I do think it's kind of interesting to see. I feel like I've heard that before where people were saying, hey, these models are so expensive to build because there's such a mass amount of data that needs to be not only processed but collected, which is also costly. That it kind of solidifies that there can only be so many big players in the space, and those guys are going to like kind of shuffle for who's. It's like we're back in the days of who was your search engine, right? Yeah. Like your Yahoo guy, Ask Jeeves. I don't know how many other on that RIP list, but a fair amount, right? Like
MSN. Does Bing count? Where's Bing at?
Yeah,
I guess Bing now has
Bard.
Bard and wait, Bard is Google. Bing is Microsoft, so that's working with OpenAI, presumably.
Yeah, what is?
You ever use Bard?
No,
it's pretty solid.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's real time. So that's the nice thing. It has all the up to date information.
Oh, really? So their model's like constantly updated.
Yeah. Because they are Google.
Yeah, must be nice.
They got it.
Yeah.
It's cool. Bard's a good product.
But what so you're kind of seeing that on that space. So you're going to just license out that use. But what I think is interesting, and when I talked to Colin and I talked to Colin Zanstra, is that how you say his last name? And then you talked
to our CTO.
CTO. Yep. And you talked to like Chris. Like I really misunderstood how generative AI works. As an accountant, like I was like, when I bought it, so people that don't know, I purchased FloQast back when I was at Kodiak Cakes. Love the product. That's what brought me here today. And when you guys had matching for us, like I assumed I understood how matching works. I was like, well, it learns. So I teach it, and it's so cool. And then you find out, because like there's a struggle, and this wasn't just a FloQast thing. This was any space that machine learning was supposed to learn matching for us. Things that we thought would learn and stick don't really learn and stick, because at the end of the day, especially with machine learning, it's all probability, and they didn't build that probability off your instance of data. They built that probability off an incredibly massive set of data that you are like one green sock and a big pile of red socks in the wash thinking you're going to impact the color. Yeah. And you're not, like it's just everything's coming out red.
And this is why I find it hard to believe that like accounting will be automated with generative AI, because you need a massive data set that's like across all businesses, but then every business is different. Yep. And the other part is every business has a lot of stuff that they do that's not written down anywhere.
Nope.
You can't automate something. You can't.
They could write it down in FloQast.
It's not written down. Yeah. I don't want to plug. I don't want to plug too much, but we're pretty good at that stuff. So SEC, everybody else. Yeah, let's go. But yeah, it's I think there's a place for it, but it's a lot harder than people realize. And it's like a black box of how all this stuff works.
Yeah. So my prediction in 2024 on this is, and this is what I hope for. This is like this is a long shot. But I've started to see where people are trying to figure out, and it seems like they're getting close to figuring out how to take the massive data set of their entity and then weight the probability of your data to make it seem or appear more massive, which I feel like, it seems easy, and I'm sure it's the exact opposite, right? Where it's like, just have a probability, right? It's like that you can't just turn, this isn't a dial you flip. but to then make it to where it's like almost like it has this mass amount of data, but it has syntax of what your organization is, and it learns and everything from your organization. People are claiming that they can do that in 2023. From what I've seen, that doesn't seem to actually be remotely true. But I'm thinking in 2024, maybe we'll start to see some, to your point, unique use cases around that, which I think will be really interesting in fintech. Like that's when it really unlocks your accountant from having to do like really manual work into they can almost be purely strategic, purely reviewing, even as a new employee, instead of just trying to be like, well, I'm just here to block and tackle and make sure transactions get through.
Yeah, yeah. My prediction is a lot of really cool stuff is built. It's not adopted. Accountants need more time. Regulation needs more time. Security needs more time. And so I think maybe the crop of companies popping up right now are going to be akin to like pets.com.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Pets.com is the same as Chewy.
Yeah.
Chewy came out at the right time, and Pets.com came out too early. I think the wave of innovators coming up here might just be a little ahead of market demand. And so that's what that's my
It's almost
prediction.
like they sacrifice themselves to like build the market presence, and then someone else comes out later and they're like, and they just time it right and slide in.
Second mover advantage, baby.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard to be number one.
It is.
It really is.
So
I wouldn't know, but I hear it's hard.
so that's my prediction for next year.
I love it. I love it. So I think that really covers all of our predictions for next year. I hope people took some good notes, and you can maybe go to Vegas, make some long bets. I did not tell you to do that. You shouldn't do it. But if you win big, you can buy me a cheeseburger.
This is not financial advice?
No, not at all. This would be the opposite of financial advice.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on, Mike.
No, thanks for basically running this whole thing. I appreciate it.
I do things occasionally.
Enjoyed
just
the
for you.
conversation. There we go. Yeah, we got you that big title. So
That's
there you
right.
go.
That's
Appreciate
right.
it, man.
There's the promotion.
Good hanging out. Good chatting.
Good chatting.